Video games have been around for 40 years, and throughout those years, they've evolved quite a bit, from the early days of the arcade to today's next-gen consoles. Let me tell you how this turned into this. Let's start at the beginning. First up, it's Pong. Atari released the first Pong arcade unit in 1972. It wasn't exactly the first video game ever, but it was the first game to win widespread popularity in both its arcade and home versions. The game mimicked table tennis, as the aim of the game was to get the ball, or the small square, past the opponent and getting points. The game involved a row of several aliens moving side to side and closer to the bottom of the screen, where the player controlled a rocket with a laser. The game was very addictive and simple to control, and because of its popularity, it is considered one of the most influential video games ever created.
Looking back now, it was very, very primitive, but at the time we thought it was the bee's knees.
Released in 1985, it featured a colourful environment and smooth side-scrolling gameplay, and is considered a landmark in game history.
Do you remember, what's it called? You had Mario, Luigi, Princess Peach, and you had Yoshi in Super Mario World you could ride on it.
Yoshi, he was amazing.
Final Fantasy is now the most popular RPG in the world, having had 12 installments and several spin-offs, including 2 full-length CG films. Not to mention the most memorable characters and stories that have captured the imagination of all who've played. The Game Boy, developed and released by Nintendo in 1989, was the first successful handheld console, despite the fact it was released around the same time as technically superior handheld consoles such as the Sega Game Gear, which had colour and better sound. It still came out on top. Tetris was developed in 1985, but then it was released on the Game Boy in 1989 and became extremely popular. The aim of the game was to move the falling blocks into lines to stop them from piling up and reaching the top of the screen. It was considered as one of the most influential and most recognised games of all time.
I love Tetris. I think it's one of the best games around, to be honest.
We spoke to Ryan Jones to see how much an impact the classics had on him.
The first game I remember playing was, well, this console here. It's a small console, and it was brilliant at the time. It had all different sports games on it. And it was very basic, but at the time it was absolutely fantastic. I really had fun with it, yeah.
Sonic the Hedgehog introduced unique elements such as loops, springboards and rings, all of which are now permanently associated with the game series.
It was, well, actually the first game I got when I got my Mega Drive, which was my first console. So it was like, Sonic's probably sort of most iconic game that I had in my childhood.
Final Fantasy VII was one of the first RPG games to make the jump to 3D. It also featured some of the most memorable characters and music in the entire series.
But I've spent maybe like about 4 or 5 weeks on it and completed it and just really enjoyed it.
This is Snake. Colonel, can you hear me? Loud and clear.
Metal Gear Solid showed the game industry that games could be as cinematic as any Hollywood film, and is now the most popular game series in the stealth genre.
Just a box.
The game has some interesting ways to hide from the enemy, such as hiding under rocks and fighting against walls.
In my opinion, it's probably the most epic game I've ever played, seeing as it's, I suppose, related to a movie because of just the way the directors sort of directed it. It's exactly, he's directed it like a film.
We spoke to Leanne Scott to see her views on the games of today and the future.
I'd say they're better because they're more realistic than like pixelated crap, and you know they've got like movements and stuff better, and things look more realistic. probably in, you know, years to come, they'll probably have virtual reality, stuff like that.
But that's all in the past and the present. It's now between three major companies: the Sony PS3, the Microsoft Xbox 360, and the Nintendo's Wii. Let's see what you think.
I don't know much about PlayStation 3. Other than that, it's going to be fantastic. It's the next best thing, and it's about 500 quid.
Pretty much, it's drawn between the Wii and the PS3.
I'm most looking forward to the Wii because it looks like an interesting and new style of playing with the motion-sensitive controller.
PS3, definitely.
Well, it's out now, but I'm excited about the Nintendo Wii. I haven't played it yet, and I've got high hopes for the Nintendo Wii.
Only time will tell how these new consoles will fare. But for now, we'll just have to wait and see. Thanks for watching.